All right, let's jump into another deep dive. And today, we're talking Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yes.
But, we're not going to do the whole Bitcoin 101 thing.
Right.
Because everyone listening already knows about that.
Yeah, they're way past that.
We're going deep on what happened after the 2024 election.
Oh, yeah.
Things got interesting, right?
Yeah.
We've got news articles, financial reports, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of it.
Enough to, I think, even surprise people who follow this stuff really closely.
Absolutely. So what we're trying to figure out is, Bitcoin's price, everyone was saying it was going to hit 100,000.
Right.
And it did for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then
What happened?
that's what we're going to get into.
It's like a mystery.
It is a financial mystery.
Yeah, so right after the election, there was, people called it the Trump bump.
The Trump bump, yeah.
Bitcoin just went crazy.
It did.
Like completely bonkers.
Well, you have to remember, he was saying some pretty bold things, The U.S. was going to be a crypto haven.
Right.
He even talked about maybe, a government Bitcoin reserve.
Oh, wow. So,
Big deal.
yeah, those kind of statements,
Right.
they send shockwaves through the market.
Yeah, for sure. And the numbers are crazy. From like $68,300 in November, it shot up past 100,000 in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's insane. But then it kind of stalled, right?
Yeah, it did.
It was all hype, wasn't it?
Well, I think hype definitely played a part.
Okay.
I mean, anything that goes up that fast, it's almost like, almost like it has to correct itself.
Yeah.
Because you've got people who bought in early.
Mm-hmm.
They see this huge profit, right? And they say, okay, I'm going to cash out.
Yeah.
And that selling, when they start selling,
Right.
it brings the price down.
So it's like the hype creates the peak, but then the peak kind of kills the hype.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But there's got to be more to it than just hype, right? Oh, absolutely. Trump, he talked a big game on crypto,
Right.
but his administration, they were slow to actually do anything.
Oh, okay.
Concrete policies,
No.
So there was still a lot of uncertainty.
About like regulations and stuff.
Exactly. And, regulations, that's a big deal
Huge.
for any market.
Right, because even if you think, like, long term, this thing's going to be great, if you don't know the rules,
Yeah.
it's hard to know what to do,
Well,
right?
it makes it risky.
Yeah.
It makes it risky.
And we can't forget, like, what was happening in the world at the time, right?
Oh, of course.
Inflation was crazy.
Inflation was a big problem.
People were nervous. Like, even if you weren't into Bitcoin,
Yeah.
people were, like, freaking out.
Absolutely. Traditional investors,
Right.
the people who are used to stocks and bonds,
Yeah.
they start to get a little shaky when they see inflation going up.
Yeah. So they take their money out of the riskier stuff
Yeah,
and they put it in things that are safer.
exactly. Gold,
Gold, right?
that's usually seen as a safe haven.
So this is all happening in the background, right? While Bitcoin is doing its thing.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected.
Wow. So Bitcoin's early surge, it was like a combination of, Trump's promises and this crazy market hype.
Yeah.
And then reality hit.
Yeah.
Regulations were uncertain. The economy globally was shaky.
Right.
And then we get to February 25th, 2025,
Oh, boy.
a day that I'm sure some Bitcoin fans would rather forget. What happened?
Well, that was the day Bitcoin took a big dip. Went below $90,000 for the first time in weeks.
Wow.
Ended up closing around $87,276.
So that's a drop of what, like over 4% in one day?
Yeah, over 4.6% in a single day.
Jeez.
That's a lot.
Like $4,220 just gone.
Yeah. If you bought in near the peak, that's
Ouch.
gotta hurt.
Yeah. And the fear and greed index, right?
Yeah.
It was showing extreme fear.
Extreme fear. Yeah, people were panicking.
So you've got this big drop. Everyone's freaking out. But even then, there were experts saying, buy the dip.
Yeah. Yeah, you always have those.
And others were saying, get out while you can.
Right, exactly. Two very different perspectives.
What were they seeing that was so different?
Well, some of them, they looked at this drop and saw opportunity.
Okay.
They said, this is just a blip. Bitcoin's going to go way higher.
They had faith.
They believed in the long-term potential.
Wow.
Yeah, they doubled down.
And the other side. The cautious ones.
They were worried about more dips.
Oh.
Some even said it could go down to like the low 80,000s.
So they were like, this isn't a correction. This is the beginning of the end.
Pretty much. They saw it as the market correcting itself after, an unsustainable surge.
So it's the same event, but two completely different ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
What does that tell us about Bitcoin itself? Is it like fundamentally broken, or is this just how it is?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, is this volatility just Bitcoin being Bitcoin, or is it, a sign of bigger problems? To answer that, we need to look at the bigger picture, like what are the long-term factors?
Okay, so let's zoom out a little. We talked about the digital gold idea before. What does that actually mean?
Right, right. So some investors, they think Bitcoin could become like a major global reserve asset.
Okay.
Like gold has been, for centuries because it has a limited supply, right?
Right.
And it's decentralized.
So it's like a safe haven when things get crazy in the world.
Exactly, exactly. When regular currencies, they lose value because of inflation or wars, whatever.
The theory is that Bitcoin will hold up better.
Yeah, at least that's the idea, especially in countries with, unstable economies.
Yeah, I could see that. But for Bitcoin to really become like a big player globally, it would need to be easier for people to invest in it. Right?
Oh, for sure. And that's where ETFs come in.
Oh, yeah, ATS.
Exchange traded funds. Basically, they're like baskets of assets you can buy and sell on the stock market.
I think I've heard of those.
Yeah, and there's a lot of buzz about Bitcoin ETFs.
So instead of having to figure out how to buy Bitcoin directly, you could just buy shares of an ETF.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Through your regular brokerage account. Easy peasy.
That would be a game changer.
It would. A lot of analysts think it would bring a ton of new money into the market.
And there's a specific type of ETF that people are really excited about, right?
Yes. The spot Bitcoin ETF.
Spot Bitcoin ETF.
So a regular Bitcoin ETF, it holds Bitcoin futures contracts.
Okay.
Which are basically bets on the future price of Bitcoin.
Okay.
But a spot Bitcoin ETF would actually hold Bitcoin itself.
Gotcha.
So it's a much more direct way to invest.
It's like instead of betting on whether a house price will go up, you're buying the actual house.
Exactly. And there's a lot of talk that major financial institutions were getting closer to launching these spot Bitcoin ETFs.
That'd be huge, right?
Huge. A huge step towards mainstream adoption.
So it sounds like things are kind of lining up for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, potentially.
But there are always challenges with new stuff like this. What are some of the hurdles Bitcoin still has to overcome?
Well, one big one is scalability.
Scalability.
So Bitcoin's network, it can only process a certain number of transactions per second.
Okay.
And when demand is high, that can lead to delays, higher fees.
Right.
It's like, imagine trying to fit a whole city's worth of traffic onto a single lane highway.
Yeah, not good.
No, not good. But, developers are working on solutions.
Like what?
The Lightning Network is one.
Lightning Network.
Yeah, it's designed to make transactions faster and cheaper.
So it's like building a high-speed rail line next to that highway.
Exactly.
Okay, so scalability, they're working on it. What else?
Well, regulation is still a big one, as we talked about before. It's like the rules are constantly changing, and that makes investors nervous.
Makes sense.
And then there's security.
Oh, right, yeah. What about all those stories of Bitcoin exchanges getting hacked?
Yeah, so the blockchain itself is very secure, but the exchanges where people buy and sell and store their Bitcoin, those can be vulnerable.
You got to be careful where you keep your Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Choose reputable exchanges and, take steps to protect your own holdings.
Got it. So we've got the potential, the challenges, all these uncertainties.
Yeah.
How do you, as an expert, how do you see things playing out long-term for Bitcoin?
Well, I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic.
I think Bitcoin has the potential to really shake things up in the financial world.
Okay.
Empower people, make things more transparent.
Right.
But it's still very early days.
So it's not about whether it will succeed or fail. It's about how it changes and what role it ends up playing.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so exciting,
Yeah.
We're watching a brand new asset class being born, a whole new way of thinking about money.
It's like a whole new frontier.
It is. And yeah, there are risks and challenges.
Right.
But there's also this sense of excitement, this sense of possibility.
I can feel it just talking about it.
Yeah, it's contagious.
But what about the people who aren't convinced? What are some of the main criticisms of Bitcoin? It seems like you either love it or you hate it. There's no middle ground with Bitcoin.
Well, like any new technology that really disrupts things, there are valid criticisms.
Yeah.
Some people say, look, Bitcoin's just too volatile. It's too up and down to be a good store of value.
Yeah.
It's more like gambling than an actual currency.
It's definitely been on a roller coaster ride, that's for sure.
It has. And then, there's the environmental concerns.
Right.
Bitcoin mining, which is how new Bitcoins are created, uses a ton of energy.
It takes a lot of computers, right? All crunching numbers.
It does, yeah. And those computers need a lot of electricity.
Uh-huh.
And some people say, look, that's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's contributing to climate change.
It's a big debate, for sure.
It is. Now, people who support Bitcoin, they'll say, hey, the industry's moving towards renewable energy sources.
Right.
But it's definitely a valid point to bring up.
Yeah. There are legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
But even with all that, it's hard to deny that Bitcoin has, captured people's imaginations.
It has. And I think it's because it's more than just a technology, more than an investment. It's like a whole philosophy.
Oh, wow.
It's a movement.
Vision for a different future.
Exactly, yeah.
So what is that vision? What are the core ideas behind this Bitcoin movement?
Well, at its heart, it's about decentralization. Taking power away from, the big guys. Governments, banks. Giving it back to the people.
The power to the people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about transparency, too.
Right.
All the transactions, they're recorded on a public ledger, the blockchain.
So everyone can see what's happening.
Yeah. And then there's this idea of financial freedom, right? You control your own money. You don't need the banks.
It's like a digital version of the American dream.
There's definitely that libertarian spirit, But it's not just about the ideology.
Right.
There are real practical benefits to a decentralized system. It's more resistant to censorship.
Oh, hey.
Governments can't just shut it down.
That makes sense, especially in places where governments are, not so stable.
Exactly. Or where people don't have access to banks.
Right.
It can be a lifeline.
But even in developed countries, it's like an alternative.
Right? Yeah. If you don't trust the system.
If you feel like the system is rigged.
You have another option.
It's like a parallel financial universe.
It is.
But for someone who's brand new to all this.
Yeah.
It can be so overwhelming. Where do you even start?
Yeah.
If you want to learn about Bitcoin, what should you do?
Well, first of all, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay.
There's a lot of information out there, but not all of it's good information.
Right.
So find reliable sources.
Yeah.
And don't just believe everything you read, Think critically.
Be skeptical.
Yeah. And start small.
Okay.
Don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
Right.
Because, Bitcoin is still volatile. It's like any other investment. You got to understand the risk.
Do your research.
Exactly. And remember, it's constantly changing. What's true about Bitcoin today might not be true tomorrow.
It's a fast-moving target.
It is. So stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
This is a technology that could really change the world.
It could. And we're all still figuring out what that means.
Yeah. It's exciting. So to wrap up our deep dive into Bitcoin, what's the main thing you want people to take away from this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that Bitcoin is more than just a digital currency.
Okay.
It's a technological breakthrough. It's a social movement. It's a challenge to the way things are. And the story's not finished yet.
Still being written.
It is, and we all have a chance to be a part of it.
So whether you're a true believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, we hope this deep dive has helped you understand Bitcoin a little bit better, its potential, its challenges, all of it. This is just the beginning, folks. The future of finance is unfolding right now, and we're all part of it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.